Growing up, Martin Luther King Jr. was presented as a walking god, a man who had no flaws, and a modern-day superhero. It wasn't up until recent years and thanks to the internet that a discussion started to circulate about his life outside of politics. According to records, MLK was a cheater and a womanizer. Yes, the records reveal that Martin Luther King was spreading his word in more than one way. But honestly, it doesn't bother me nor surprise me. For some, this piece of information about one of the most respected men in history could be hard to accept. And no, this isn't our way of starting mess, but more so our way to have real questions. In the midst of his fight towards freedom, our own government hanged a dark cloud over MLK's head on showing his followers his other side. If you follow the story of MLK, you would know that the head of FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, feared a black messiah and saw MLK as a definite threat. And that's where we begin. According to the Martin Luther King Jr. Research and Education Institute, a part of Stanford University, the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation began following Martin Luther King in December of 1955. The director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, believed that King was influenced by communists. Sam Pollard, who directed the 2020 documentary film MLK, FBI, explains Hoover's motivation for spying on King. The first fear that the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, had was that King was going to align himself with the Communist Party, which J. Edgar Hoover was obsessed with destroying. So they started by using classic spying techniques and wiretaps in the midst of King's rise, and this would reveal his extramarital affairs. And for those who don't know, King was a husband and father of four to Coretta Scott King. Hoover's pursuit would increase after King called the FBI completely ineffectual in resolving the continued mayhem and brutality inflicted upon the Negro in the Deep South. Through the FBI's domestic counterintelligence program, King was the victim of FBI surveillance that showed alleged evidence of extramarital affairs. His hope was to then pass it on to the press and that the press would publish it, and it would really discredit Dr. King and his reputation as this upright Christian minister who was leading the civil rights movement. So people would say, oh, how horrible his personal life is. How can we follow this man? Now, what they didn't bank on was back in the 60s, the press did not take the bait. They did not reveal the personal lives of these public figures. They didn't do it with John F. Kennedy, they didn't do it with others, and they didn't do it with Dr. King. The FBI would do whatever they could in order to discredit King. These methods would include wiretapping his home and hotel rooms and paying informants to spy on him. According to the film MLK/FBI, they would go into these hotels before King and his associates got there, and they would be let in by the management to bug those rooms and to have the rooms next door, nearby, where they could listen in to what was going on when King's associates took those rooms. And as Chuck Knox says, a former FBI agent, anytime King was going to a new city, FBI agents were on the move to get to those places, to start to monitor and wiretap and listen to everything what was happening within the confines of those rooms between King and his associates, members of the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The wiretappers revealed that King was having extramarital affairs. Some members of King's staff knew what was going on. Ralph David Abernathy, activist and friend of King, would also confirm that King had his share of women in his book, and the walls came tumbling down. According to Abernathy, King himself wasn't fazed by the possibility of this getting out either. Abernathy would even reveal that King had encounters with various women on the night before his April 4th, 1968 assassination in Memphis, Tennessee. All understood and believed in the biblical prohibition against sex outside marriage. It was just that he had a particularly difficult time with that temptation. He was a man who attracted women, even when he didn't intend to, and attracted them in droves. He was a hero, the greatest hero of his age, and women are always attracted to a hero. The main infraction I see that could be raised is from his wife, Coretta Scott King, at the time. Was this something she knew and was okay with as long as he didn't bring it home? According to her own words in the book, My Life, My Love, My Legacy, Coretta would address the speculations about King. The question everyone wants to know is this: do I believe my husband was faithful? Coretta would go on to say that MLK had a guilt complex that would cause him to admit wrongdoings, and she had a gut feeling that their marriage was sound, causing her to believe MLK was a faithful husband. If you study history, power and women go hand in hand, so there shouldn't be a surprise that Kentucky Senator Georgia Davis Powers, Dolores Evans, and civil rights activist Dorothy Cotton were some of the women linked to King. Some of the surveillance would even reveal a 12-person hotel orgy and a secret apartment where King was reported in spending time with Miss Cotton. When the FBI felt that they had enough evidence, they sent King an anonymous letter along with some of the tapes and suggested that he kill himself. They were trying to make it sound like it was not only a former associate, but a Negro who wrote that letter. This is supposed to be the nation's police. That's supposed to be doing the right thing, and this is the lengths they'll go to destroy a human being. It's awful. The FBI had been known to use illegal tactics and abuse their national security surveillance powers. During the Cold War, the FBI began a domestic intelligence counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO, which was originally thought to protect the national security from hostile foreign threats, but eventually transitioned into suppressing domestic political dissent through illegal uses. In 2017, the National Archives released a 20-page report that was part of the JFK files. The report once again claimed that MLK had affairs with multiple women, including folk singer Joan Baez, and that he may have fathered a baby girl with the wife of a prominent black dentist. When the youngest child of MLK, Dr. Bernice King, caught wind, she quickly shut those rumors down. Bernice would tweet, "I wake up in 2017 only to see my father is once again being assassinated. As my mom used to always say to me, they keep trying to assassinate your father over and over again. We are in the fight of our lives. Even in the midst of disparaging reports about my father, I've not lost heart and I'm hopeful." In addition, she said she didn't want people to be distracted, divided, or change the narrative instead, asking them to remain on the high plane of dignity and discipline. So if King did have a few queens, is it really a surprise? No matter how you feel, he still changed our lives. As the public becomes more aware of the personal lives and celebrities and notable figures, it starts to get increasingly difficult to ignore the moral shortcomings they may have, despite their great work. Does Martin Luther King cheating on his wife discredit the civil rights movement in any way? Does the fact that he may have been unfaithful to his wife take away all he has achieved in his lifetime? Just because what Martin Luther King may have been doing behind the scenes doesn't mean that everything he stood for should be questioned now. It's about the power of the message, not the image of the messenger.